Hey, what's up? This is Chosen. This video is going to be about an extremely efficient way for you to farm this season, Rathma Speed GRs, or rat runs as we call them. The season's been going great so far, having a lot of fun. My group was the first to complete their GR20, me and a friend of mine that were both playing Necromancer in our group, and we were the first ones to do a GR65 on opening night. I've reached 800 Paragon opening weekend. I'm 815 right now. I hit 800 last night, Saturday night, and the season started on Thursday night. So it's been extremely efficient for us, and we're getting a ton of XP. We've been running about 2 to 2.5 minute GR 90s in our group. So and we're playing on hardcore, so we're having to play a little bit safe. If you're playing on softcore, you could definitely be going higher than that at 800 Paragon, be doing like 95s or something. I'll show one of the runs we did in like 2.5 minutes in a GR90 this season at the towards the end of this video. The party composition is two DPS Necromancers playing Rothma, kind of like what I'm playing here. That's what I've been playing, the one of the DPS Necros. Support Barb and a support Necromancer. That's the four players you're going to want in the group to make it efficient. The general play style is the Barbarian keeps the team immune to stuff like Frozen with permanent ignore pain via the Pride of Cassius belt, and gives movement speed via the Chalonix chain belt in the cube, either or, one of them wearing and one of them in the cube. Kind of the Barbarian watches over the DPS, keeps them safe, and picks up health globes to generate essence for the Necromancers. The support Necromancer needs tons of cooldown to have Land of the Dead up as much as possible to lock enemies in place and help generate globes while providing buffs. The two DPS Necros use Simulacrum to get crazy amounts of damage from mages and just blow everything up on the map. I'm getting messages on Discord. Sorry about that. I'll mute myself here in a second. To know if you are running the proper GR level, the runs should be taking about 3 to 4 minutes. The one that we did is about 2.5 minutes, but we're playing a little bit safe at a little bit lower level because we're on hardcore. So if we were playing on softcore, we'd be going a little bit higher, and they would be taking about 3 or 4 minutes for maximum XP. So yeah, first I will go over the two DPS Necros and what they run. What I'm doing here is the 6B Throthma set. That is kind of the mandatory uh, for the mages build I've been using. The offhand doesn't really matter. You are looking for an ancient one that has crit chance, cooldown, and maximum essence on it. So in a perfect world, you would have crit, cooldown, essence, and instead of vitality, you could go with like 15% um, skeleton mage damage, but I have the vitality on this one. So you're going to be doing physical damage, so it'd be great to have that on your bracers. You want to craft Reaper's Wraps. They're going to help you keep that essence up from all the globes that your team is picking up for you. The amulet, you can go double crit int. I guess the perfect one would be double crit plus physical damage, but an amulet like this is great with the main stat and double crit. The other ones you're gonna want to prioritize in the helm skeletal mage damage, even over crit. So main stat vitality, skeletal mage damage, or if you're on softcore, you could go with the 6 crit instead of the vitality. So you could have main stat, crit, and skeleton damage. The belt is going to be the Dainty's binding. This is going to help us keep a lot of toughness up while we're going in the rift. You could substitute this with like a witching hour if you wanted to go super glass cannon and not worry about dying and really maximize that damage. The weapon is going to be Scythe of the Cycle in our main hand. You want to get an ancient one if you can, and one that has cooldown on it. This one's a really good one because it has cooldown and maximum essence. And then I was able to roll the 10% damage on there to give it just a little bit more power. The rings is kind of be. Let me mute myself on Discord quick. I don't know how to do that. Oh well, I don't know how to do that right now. I'll figure that out. But yeah, in the rings you're gonna want the Circle of Niluge, this and the Convention of Elements, and in the cube I've got the Crisbin's Sentence. The Crisbin's Sentence and the Circle of Niluge are absolutely mandatory. You have to have those two. If you want, you can wear those two and then put like Convention in the cube, or you can kind of play that Convention spot is kind of up to you. You could switch it around with something else if you wanted to, but the Crisbins and the Circle of Niluge are absolutely mandatory. So yeah, that's kind of the general gist of the gear for the DPS Necros. As far as the build, you're gonna want Simulacrum Reservoir. This is what's gonna double your essence and basically give those mages a ton more power. It does have a big cooldown, but what you do is the two necromancers they alternate when they cast simulacrum. So when you enter the rift, one of the necromancers casts simulacrum and the other one waits for like 30 seconds, and then they cast their simulacrum, and then the whole rift you're kind of alternating so that one of you is constantly outputting a ton of damage. And then blood rush potency is our momentum movement ability because it's going to give you a little bit more armor just to increase that toughness. Devour satiated. Devour is absolutely mandatory. It's going to be grabbing all those corpses from the monsters that are dying and and regenerating your essence for you. And then this one, if you're min maxing and playing like perfectly, you would probably want to Decrepify Borrowed Time because it's going to help you get that simulacrum up a little bit quicker. I was running Frailty, Aura of Frailty, just because I was playing a little bit lazier and it was a little bit easier. It helps us finish off mobs, and I don't have to constantly spam anything. I don't have to constantly spam Decrepify to keep that damage buff, damage, the toughness buff from my Dainty's Binding Belt. So if you want to play lazy, you can go with Frailty, Aura of Frailty. If you're wanting to min max and play it perfectly, you can go with Decrepify, Borrowed Time. We're going to be also running bone armor because when we look at our weapon, the Scythe of the Cycle, your secondary skills deal extra damage while bone armor is active. So you're going to be wanting to keep bone of armor active constantly without ever letting it fall off. And I went with Harvest of Anguish for that movement speed so we can get through that GR as fast as possible. Skeletal Mage, Singularity. This really synergizes with that Simulacrum Reservoir because you're going to be dumping all of your essence into those skeletal mages, and your simulacrum doubles your essence. So you're going to be getting a ton of extra essence and getting really powerful skeletal mages. The passives, Extended Servitude is basically mandatory, and I play hardcore, so Final Service is mandatory as well. I still think even in softcore you would want to run this just for a quality of life thing, just to help you really stay alive in those GRs and have less downtime. Overwhelming Essence is also mandatory because it's going to give us 80 more essence while we're in Simulacrum because it doubles, and that's going to really increase the potency of our skeletal mages. And then Blood is Power is also very good because it's going to help you reduce the cooldown of Simulacrum every time you cumulatively lose 100% of your health, which you're going to be doing because of Simulacrum and Blood Rush. So you're going to be guaranteed to proc that effect in between every Simulacrum. Now, when you enter the rift, that's the most dangerous part for the DPS Necro. What you've got to do is get your skeletal mages to do some attacks because what we're going to get from our Rothma set is 1% damage reduction by every time our mages deal damage, and that is up to 50 stacks. So you want to get your mages to do 50 attacks as soon as possible. So when you enter the rift, cast those mages and kind of play carefully until they stack those 50 stacks, and then that's really going to give you a lot more toughness. And also try to get your 10 stacks of bone armor because that is also going to reduce your damage. So when you enter the rift, get those bone armor stacks and let your mages attack and generate those 50 stacks before you start really diving in and playing crazy. And we're also going to be wanting to spam Devour constantly because so put that on the easiest button for you to hit constantly because you're going to be wanting to hit that like once a second just to constantly pick up those corpses that are spawning. And then, yeah, the frailty I did because I'm super lazy and it's super easy to play. But when I'm min maxing, I will do the Decrepify Borrowed Time. And then, yeah, Simulacrum, you want to cast this on cooldown once you have alternated with your other Necromancer so that you guys can constantly have it up. And as soon as it's up, you got to pop that thing. One important note is when you see a channeling shrine, you want to try and cast Simulacrum right before you hit that Channeling Shrine because it's going to reduce the cooldown. So you cast Simulacrum, then hit the Channeling Shrine, and then that's going to help you get a lot more Simulacrums throughout the course of the Rift, and you won't waste that cooldown. But yeah, is there anything else? You could also, another tip is your Convention of Elements rotation. You can kind of alternate that with another person in your party. So we're going to be doing a ton of damage when this says physical. So right now it's cold and it's going to be moving into physical right there, which comes after cold. So what you want to do is have your other necromancer not have physical at the same time as you. So what they can do is leave the game and re-enter while you're in town, and then your convention of elements will desync. Because I think when you are in a party and you create a game, your convention of elements will be synced up perfectly. And same concept as simulacrum, you want to stagger those convention of element physical buffs. That way you're both constantly you have a constant flow of damage instead of a burst. So alternate your simulacrums and alternate your convention of elements in order to maximize the efficiency of the GR. As far as the support, okay, so for the 0 DPS Barbarian, you're going to be wanting the 4-piece of the Rakers because that's going to help your Furious Charge. And you're going to definitely want NGM in the cube, and your 2 weapons are going to be the Bulk Kathos weapons. And then the abilities, you want Sprint, Forest March, Whirlwind, Wind Shear, Furious Charge, Dreadnought, Threatening Shout, Falter, Ignore Pain, Mob Rule. That's a really important one. You have to keep that up for your party constantly. And then Warcry, Veteran's Warning. Passives, we want Nerves of Steel, Pound of Flesh, Inspiring Presence, and Superstition. On the boots, the illusory boots are really good for helping the barbarian keep up that constant mobility and be able to get to those globes. And the barbarian's going to want as much pickup radius as possible. So you see he's rolling the 2 pickup radius on his boots. Make sure the armor, he has 2 pickup radius, and he's kind of getting that pickup radius wherever he can because that's going to really help generate those globes for the DPS. And then where the Nemesis shrines, so you can spawn those elites on all the shrines to help the progression of the rift a lot faster and keep the NGM up. For the rings, you want Obsidian Ring of the Zodiac to help with the cooldowns of the Ignore Pain. And Oculus Ring is going to spawn that little ring of buff damage that your Necromancers can stand in. The belts are Chelonics Chain for movement speed and Pride of Cassius in the cube. You can, if you find a perfect Pride of Cassius that has 6-second cooldown on Ignore Pain, you can go ahead and wear that and then put the the Chelonics Chain in the cube. The Leoric Crown is also going to help with the cooldown of the Ignore Pain. So you want a diamond in a Leoric Crown with as high of a percentage as you can get. He's got a 98, and that's great. So the Rondell's Locket is a popular one for barbarians, for 0 DPS barbarians, because of that pickup radius. It's going to help him be able to scoop up those globes as easy as possible. And then on the gems, you're just basically going for the damage reduction, cooldown, and the gem of efficacious toxin, just so the enemies you poison take increased damage from all sources, and it helps keep your necromancers alive because they deal less damage. The Golgotha Swiftness is going to help you with the cooldowns, and the Esoteric is the best kind of damage reduction gem in the game, so that really helps with survivability on the Barbarian. So now going into the ZDPS Necromancer, you're going to want to wear 3 pieces of Pestilence plus the Royal Ring of Grandeur. That's going to help with those, every time you hit something with Corpse Lance, it's going to reduce your damage taken by 2% up to a maximum of 50% and last 15 seconds. So that's really going to help that ZDPS Necromancer survive in the Rift. And then you're going to be wanting to maximize cooldown. So you're going to be going with Obsidian Ring of the Zodiac and Oculus Ring, same rings as the Barbarian. And then this Halicon's Ascent is really good in the Amulet because whenever you activate Land of the Dead, which you're going to be doing, hopefully, every elite pack, you're going to cause them to jump up and down, which is going to proc your Strong Arm Bracers and make that elite pack take extra damage. The Captain Crimson's set, you can craft this at the blacksmith. It's going to give you 10% cooldown, so that's very good. and the belt, the Vigilante belt, going to give you more cooldown. And on the offhand, you're going to want something with really good stats and cooldown. And then cold skills reduce movement speed of monsters is what he's got on, and increases your movement speed. So lost time is going to be a really good one for this build because cold skills, we're using frozen lands on Land of the Dead. And for the skills on the Necromancer, on the ZDPS Necromancer, you're going to want Corpse Lance, Brittle Touch, Death Nova, Blight, Devour, Satiated, Frozen Lands, Land of the Dead, Blood Rush, Potency, and Command Skeletons, Enforcer. That's going to help you, those skeletons attacking is going to help you proc your Obsidian Ring of the Zodiac. For the passives, right now he's got on Rigor Mortis, Life from Death, Blood is Power, and Final Service. In the cube, the Spear of Lysander, the Lorix Crown, and the Ring of Royal Grandeur. So that's kind of the all four classes and the build in a nutshell, the party composition. I didn't really go super in depth on the Barbarian and the Necromancer just because I've kind of been specializing on the DPS part of it. And so that's the one I wanted to get into the most. But now I will show you one of our 2.5 minute greater if 90s so you can kind of see the general play style. Shit, it's fatties.
Yep. Just gotta outrun him.
Whoops.
Yep.
See you guys soon.
Always.
I'm back there. Okay, I'm coming. There's a furnace.
Hell yeah.
Hell yeah.
Arcane got out and
Alrighty, I hope you enjoyed this video about Rathma speedruns, and if you have any questions, drop it down in the comments, and I will do my best to respond to you and help you out. Thanks for watching. Peace.